Nobody expected Toto Wolff to react like this when Max Verstappen arrived at Nürburgring in a Mercedes. Not Red Bull. Not Formula One. Not even the fans standing inside the paddock. Because this is not some casual side project. This is Verstappen, the biggest Red Bull driver in the world, driving a Mercedes at the most dangerous racetrack ever built. And the terrifying part for Formula One is that he is already fast enough to win. But here is what makes this story even crazier. Mercedes executives reportedly helped move racing schedules just so Verstappen could legally enter this event. A Formula One rival helping Max Verstappen race a Mercedes. That alone sounds impossible. Then the impossible became real. More than 200,000 fans are expected at Nürburgring this weekend. Every major ticket sold out before the race even started for the first time in the event's modern history. And inside the paddock, one question suddenly became unavoidable. What happens if Verstappen discovers he loves this more than Formula One itself? Because this is not Monaco. This is the green hell. 15 miles of fog, darkness, traffic, blind corners, and zero forgiveness. 160 cars sharing the same circuit. Rain in one corner, sunshine in another. And somehow, Verstappen already led races here before disaster struck. Now Toto Wolff is watching the one driver he chased for years climb into a Mercedes, surrounded by Red Bull branding, while the entire motorsport world realizes something at the exact same moment. This may not be a one-time appearance. This could be the beginning of something Formula One cannot control anymore. And once you see what happened behind the scenes before this race even began, Toto Wolff's reaction suddenly makes perfect sense. The moment Verstappen's Mercedes rolled into the Nürburgring paddock, something felt wrong. In the best possible way. Because Formula One fans are not supposed to see this image. Max Verstappen stepping out of a Mercedes-AMG GT3 covered in Red Bull branding almost looks like somebody edited reality itself. One of Red Bull's greatest drivers, working directly with Mercedes machinery, while Toto Wolff watches from the background. And the deeper you look into this project, the stranger it becomes. Because this was not thrown together for publicity. This took months of planning, negotiations, and adjustments behind closed doors. According to the source material, Mercedes leadership even pushed for schedule changes so Verstappen could complete the mandatory Nürburgring preparation race required before entering the 24-hour event. That is an extraordinary level of involvement for a driver who technically races against Mercedes every single Formula One weekend. Now think about what that tells you. Teams in Formula One guard their time like gold. Every simulator session matters. Every sponsor appearance matters. Every free day matters. Yet somehow, people inside Mercedes believed this project was important enough to help make it happen. That alone raised questions all across the paddock. Because this is not a random celebrity appearance at some exhibition race. The Nürburgring destroys unprepared drivers. And Verstappen knows that better than anyone. The Nordschleife is over 15 miles long, with more than 150 corners twisting through forests, hills, blind crests, and sections so narrow they feel like public roads. There are moments where drivers hit high speed with almost no visibility ahead. At night, it becomes even worse. Fog suddenly appears. Rain covers one side of the circuit while another stays dry. Traffic from slower categories turns every lap into controlled chaos. Imagine trying to sprint through a crowded city during a thunderstorm while every car around you moves at different speeds. That is basically Nürburgring endurance racing. And here is the terrifying part for everybody else. Verstappen adapted to it frighteningly fast. Most Formula One drivers need years to feel comfortable around the Nordschleife. Some never truly do. But Verstappen already proved he could win here back in 2025 when he took victory in an official GT3 race with a Ferrari. That result changed how endurance racing teams viewed him overnight. Before that race, people respected Verstappen's talent. After that race, people started worrying about his potential. Because there is a huge difference between being quick and understanding the Nürburgring. One mistake here can destroy an entire weekend instantly. And Verstappen was not just surviving. He was attacking. But here is where things become even more dangerous for Formula One itself. Verstappen does not talk about Nürburgring the way drivers usually discuss side projects. He talks about it with genuine excitement. Real passion. Almost like somebody rediscovering why they fell in love with racing in the first place. And honestly, that feeling has been missing from modern Formula One at times. Especially with the growing frustration around regulations, sprint weekends, politics, and non-stop pressure outside the car. Nürburgring offers the complete opposite experience. No glamour. No luxury yachts. No carefully managed image. Just survival, instinct, speed, and 24 brutal hours where reputation means absolutely nothing once the lights go out. That purity is exactly what makes Toto Wolff's reaction so fascinating. Because deep down, he understands what this environment can do to a driver. Especially a driver like Verstappen. Once somebody experiences racing in its rawest form, it changes them. And the scary part is that Verstappen might be enjoying this world more than anybody expected. The first real warning sign came during the Nürburgring qualifying races in April. And almost nobody outside endurance racing noticed it. At first, the weekend looked messy for Verstappen racing. The number 3 Mercedes-AMG received a grid penalty after an incident involving teammate Lucas Auer during qualifying, dropping the car from 6th to 9th before the race even started. For casual fans, that probably sounded minor. But at Nürburgring, starting position changes everything. This track is not like a normal Formula 1 circuit where drivers have wide runoff areas and predictable traffic. Here, the opening laps feel more like surviving a stampede through a mountain road filled with faster and slower cars everywhere. One small delay early in the race can trap you in traffic for hours. And yet Verstappen still found speed almost immediately. That was the first moment people inside the paddock started looking at this project differently. Because there is a massive difference between being talented and being naturally comfortable at the Nordschleife. Some drivers spend years trying to understand where the danger hides on this circuit. Verstappen looked comfortable attacking it almost instantly. Then came the second qualifying race. And this is where the story exploded. Verstappen started climbing through the field. The Mercedes looked aggressive, stable, fast through traffic. And suddenly, against experienced endurance specialists, Verstappen was leading the race. That changed the atmosphere completely. Because up until that moment, many people still treated this like an exciting experiment. After that, they started seeing a real threat. And here is what makes it even more interesting. The Nürburgring exposes weaknesses brutally. There is nowhere to hide here. Drivers cannot fake confidence around this place. The track always reveals the truth eventually. Which means Verstappen leading against experienced GT drivers sent a very dangerous message to the rest of the field. His speed was real. But then, just as momentum started building, everything collapsed. The front splitter on the Mercedes broke during the race. The team lost huge amounts of time inside the garage making repairs, dropping multiple laps behind the leaders. By the end, the final result looked disastrous on paper. 39th place. Completely out of contention. And this is where casual fans usually stop paying attention. But experienced teams did the exact opposite. Because they understood something critical. The finishing position did not matter anymore. The important detail was what happened before the damage. Verstappen had already shown he could run at the front of one of the hardest endurance races in the world. That is the kind of information rival teams cannot ignore. Especially Mercedes. Because now Toto Wolff is no longer watching a Formula 1 champion trying something fun on the side. He is watching a driver who might genuinely become elite in multiple categories of motorsport at the same time. And honestly, that possibility changes how people inside Formula 1 look at Verstappen entirely. Most drivers build careers around one discipline. Formula 1 drivers stay in Formula 1. Endurance specialists stay in endurance racing. But Verstappen seems determined to break that structure completely. And maybe the biggest clue is the way he talks about these races compared to Formula 1 weekends. There is a different energy. A different emotion. When he speaks about Nürburgring, it does not sound like corporate media training. It sounds personal. Like somebody rediscovering competition without filters. That matters more than people realize. Because once a driver reaches that point mentally, priorities can start changing very quickly. And inside Formula 1, there is growing awareness of one uncomfortable possibility. What if Verstappen is not just visiting endurance racing? What if he is building his future around it? And this is where the entire story stops being just about Nürburgring. Because once Verstappen proved he had real pace in the Mercedes, people inside the paddock immediately started connecting dots that Formula 1 has tried to ignore for months. Toto Wolff included. Think about the timing of all this. Formula 1 is entering one of the biggest regulation changes in modern history. Teams are nervous. Drivers are uncertain. Nobody truly knows which manufacturers will dominate once the new era begins. And right in the middle of that uncertainty, Verstappen suddenly looks more relaxed outside Formula 1 than inside it. That is not normal. Especially for somebody at the absolute peak of the sport. Most champions become trapped by Formula 1. The pressure consumes everything else. Their schedules become controlled down to the minute. Every public appearance feels calculated. But Nürburgring looks different around Verstappen. He smiles more. He speaks more openly. Even the atmosphere around his team feels different. And maybe that is because endurance racing works differently emotionally. In Formula 1, a driver carries almost the entire spotlight alone. Every mistake becomes global news within minutes. Every radio message gets analyzed. Every expression becomes a headline. At Nürburgring, survival depends on trust. For drivers share the same car. Mechanics work through the night. Teams adapt constantly to weather, damage, fatigue, and unpredictable conditions. It feels less political, more human. And that environment may suit Verstappen perfectly. Especially with the teammates surrounding him. Danny Juncadella, Jules Gounon, Lucas Auer. These are not random names added for marketing value. They are serious Mercedes AMG endurance specialists with years of Nürburgring experience. That matters enormously. Because one of the hardest parts of the Nordschleife is not pure speed. It is knowledge. Knowing where fog usually appears first. Knowing which corners become dangerous when temperatures drop at night. Knowing how traffic behaves after midnight when exhausted amateur drivers start making mistakes. These details decide races. And Verstappen is absorbing all of that information incredibly quickly. That is what has impressed people inside endurance racing the most. Not just the pace, the learning speed. Some drivers treat the Nürburgring like a challenge to survive. Verstappen approaches it like a puzzle he wants to solve completely. And here is where Toto Wolff's reaction becomes even more fascinating. Because for years, Wolff admired Verstappen primarily as a Formula 1 weapon. The ultimate competitive driver capable of dominating races. But now he is watching another side emerge. A pure racer. The kind of driver motorsport rarely produces anymore. The type willing to jump between disciplines simply for the love of competition itself. And honestly, that type of driver becomes impossible to control. That is the key detail many fans are missing. Formula 1 teams are built around structure. Contracts. Long-term plans, commercial obligations, political alliances. But drivers like Verstappen eventually become larger than those systems. Especially when they realize they can succeed anywhere. And Nürburgring may be proving exactly that. Because every single time Verstappen enters this environment, his reputation grows beyond Formula 1 itself. The event sold out completely for the first time in its modern history. More than 200,000 fans are expected across the weekend. That is not just Formula 1 popularity anymore. That is motorsport influence. Global influence. And once drivers reach that level, they stop making decisions based purely on contracts or championships. They start chasing meaning. Experiences. Legacy. That is why this Mercedes project feels so important emotionally. Not because Verstappen is secretly leaving Red Bull tomorrow. Not because Toto Wolff suddenly signed him. But because everybody inside the sport can see the same thing developing at once. Verstappen is building a version of his career that exists beyond Formula 1. And if he wins Nürburgring while driving a Mercedes backed by Red Bull branding, the symbolism becomes almost impossible to ignore. It would represent something bigger than a race result. A driver breaking the normal boundaries of modern motorsport entirely. And honestly, that possibility may be exactly why Toto Wolff looked so fascinated watching this project come alive.